If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain how I found out about this. It's free. It's on your app store. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right now from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Please, I urge you, don't waste another minute. I wasted 3 years. I attended all kinds of events to learn all the steps. I was so confused, and it was right here. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Do it now. This month began with a flurry of activity, and this week that hasn't let up. Therefore, we're holding off until next week on our story covering the distrust of the vaccine among the African American community, both because there's just too much happening right now and because I want to include a big meeting that's happening Tuesday on the topic. For the Heart and Home podcast, I'm Sabah Fakhoury. This is Sunday, March 7, 2021. We begin with the Senate, which passed the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. That was a big deal. So they're racing against the clock. The Senate Democrats narrowly passed President Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package yesterday, which so many Americans are relying on when waiting for that next check from the federal government. Me too. The Senate approved the package 50-49 after a marathon session of deliberating all Friday and into the early mornings of Saturday. The Senate revised measure now returns back to the House, which is expected to take up the measure on Tuesday for approval before sending it to the White House for President Biden's signature this week. Who knows? Checks could be rolling out this week. The checks in the mail kind of thing. Well, without it, the $300 per week unemployment supplement will end this week unless the legislation is passed before Sunday. It's going to extend the benefits until September 6th, and it's going to make the first $10,200 of the 2020 unemployment benefits non-taxable for households that make less than $150,000. So we're nearly a month away from that tax deadline. The current measure, which blocked an amendment from Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, calls for $350 billion to go to the state and local governments, funding for vaccine distribution, and expanding the child tax credit, among other aid. Congress has passed a string of relief bills since the pandemic began a year ago, which included a $900 billion package in December of 2020. All 50 Republicans and 8 Democrats opposed the minimum wage amendment from the Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders. This week marked the 1-year anniversary since Americans were placed on lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Amid worries over another coronavirus. Okay, let's move on to now the vaccines. President Biden says the United States will have enough vaccines for 300 million adults by the end of May. That's 2 months ahead of schedule. Pharmaceutical giant Merck will help Johnson & Johnson manufacture its newly authorized coronavirus vaccine to boost supplies. That news is causing more Americans to feel hopeful about the coronavirus. I feel it too. Do you? Both my parents received their first dose of the Moderna vaccine. It wasn't easy scoring an appointment in my hometown. I spent weeks and wasted hours checking websites, calling and registering my 90-year-old father and 83-year-old mother with CVS, Meijer, and Walgreens, none of which became available in my area despite news that they were being rolled out nationwide. So finally, our local hospital, Henry Ford Health System, took care of things. Now, there is some controversy over the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Scientists are pushing back now, saying the one dose might not be enough. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, both Mississippi and Texas's governors lifted the all-mask distancing restrictions in their states. The following day, on Wednesday, President Biden responded saying, hey, they're making a big mistake. And the last thing we need is Neanderthal thinking. Whoa. So, meanwhile, Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves tweeted, hey, I just think we should just trust Americans and not insult them. On Thursday, the governor of Alabama said she would extend the state's current mask mandate through April 9, but then she would lift the order. Well, I don't know. Do you think it's kind of too soon, too quick? Well, it didn't take long for skirmishes between unmasked customers and retail staff and security guards in Texas to start skirmishing online this week. You know, that last year, a security guard was shot and killed in a dispute at a Family Dollar here in Flint, Michigan. Despite the reversal of mask mandates in Texas and Mississippi and soon in other states, the Kroger grocery chain, which also owns the supermarket chains Ralph's and Dillon's, joined other national retail chains like Target and Macy's and Starbucks, saying, hey, we're keeping the mask requirements in our stores across the United States until frontline grocery associates can receive the COVID-19 vaccine. Sorry about that. Most of the workers are young, so they haven't received their vaccination. So they've got to get vaccinated. And the workers definitely have to keep on their masks, even though some stores are saying you don't need it. The Texas mask mandate lifts on March 10. The Dallas News reported Costco and Dallas-based independent stores Favor the Kind and the Toy Maven near also requiring masks be worn. Masks also will be required in buildings at the Dallas Market Center, which is a wholesale market where thousands of retail buyers attend events there. Best Buy told USA Today it had no plans to change its mask policy. Kohl's and Ulta told Bloomberg News that they're sticking with their mask requirements. CNN added CVS and Walgreens pharmacies and auto manufacturers Toyota and General Motors to that list. Walmart hadn't yet said what it planned to do, but last year made masks a requirement nationwide. Grocers in the state, including H-E-B, Albertsons, and Tom Thumb, said on Tuesday, after Abbott's announcement that they would continue to require employees and vendors to wear masks, but not customers. The Dallas Regional Chamber, in a statement Wednesday, reminded its members that 80% of the Dallas-Fort Worth residents have yet to receive a vaccination shot. Other grocers like Albertsons and Tom Thumb now say mask wearing will be optional. The U.S. has more than 28.7 million confirmed coronavirus cases and 519 deaths, according to Johns Hopkins University data. Two footnotes that I want to add are that If you're planning on getting a mammogram or other cancer checkups after you get your COVID vaccination, that could cause problems for you because the lymph nodes and in under your armpits, they tend to swell from the vaccination. And so it could be mistaken for cancer, and it could show up if you go for a mammogram or other scans. So just keep that in mind. Another problem that has surfaced due to the coronavirus pandemic, it has thrust anosmia, which is the loss of smell, into the international spotlight. Now, mostly we heard about loss of taste, which happens after you lose your smell if it's a really bad case. So far, about 3% of Americans that are over 40 suffer from this problem. And if you have it really bad, you could completely lose your smell and, of course, then lose your ability to taste food. Now, studies show a majority of the people who get COVID-19 do lose their sense of smell and some their taste, but only 5% have long-term loss. It has taken, for some people, months for them to get their sense of smell and taste back. And, if you do lose your sense of smell, that could be associated with other health conditions as well. So we don't know if it's just from COVID. You could have other problems. Now, despite the controversy with the J&J vaccine, all 3 COVID vaccinations are authorized in the United States: Moderna, the Pfizer, and the Johnson & Johnson. And they have been approved because they have high rates of preventing hospitalization and death. Of course, there's a difference. The most obvious is that Johnson & Johnson requires only 1 shot, although they're considering a second booster dose, and that is being tested. Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines require 2 doses that are a few weeks apart. Both Pfizer and Moderna vaccines have been more effective than J&J vaccine in clinical trials at preventing any symptomatic disease. Some experts quickly point out that the vaccines weren't compared directly against one another, so the differences might be on paper only. But on paper, those differences appear significant. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines offer protection of more than 90%, while J&J's only 66%. The U.S. is now vaccinating an average of 2 million people a day. That's up from 1.3 million in February. That puts us on track to hit President Biden's goal of 100 million doses a month ahead of schedule. 55 million people have received at least 1 dose in this country. This week, New York opened 3 mega sites, vaccination sites, and 3 more sites were around the clock. Georgia is also preparing to open 5 sites in 2 weeks. FEMA has 7 sites in California, New York, and Texas, with 1 more or more on the way. The pandemic in this week's cover story is this week's cover story in the New York Times Magazine, headlined "Life, Death, and Grief in Los Angeles County." The disease killed Blacks twice the rate and 3 times the rate of Latina residents compared to the white Angelenos, which is the most populous county in the United States with 10 million residents. The virus struck the county's poorest and neediest residents, those being the elderly Blacks in South LA and Latinos who live in the 14th most densely populated city in the country, where sometimes 3 generations of a family live in a 1-bedroom apartment. It has affected essential workers who clean homes and those who care for the elderly and people with disabilities. Many were undocumented and were excluded from federal relief. They filled COVID-19 beds at hospitals, and many were without health insurance, unemployed due to the layoffs in the hospitality industry. One more note, parents with children and younger teens that want to get their kids vaccinated, Pfizer and Moderna have completed enrollment for studies of children ages 12 and older, and they expect to release the data this summer, according to the AP. Now, for as far as people getting vaccinated, I've only heard that people 18 and over should be vaccinated. I have not heard anything about anyone younger than 18. Also in the news today, this week, we saw a time-lapse footage of people lined up at the Javits Center that gave its 100,000th vaccine this week. And currently, the center is administering about 8,000 vaccines a day. On the other side of the country, a Seattle woman walked 6 miles through the snow to get her vaccine. Well, normally that wouldn't be a big deal, except for she's 90 years old. So that's 6 miles, and I average 15 minutes per mile on my walk. Now that's in the snow, so we might want to increase it about 20 minutes, maybe more. Well, that's at least 90 minutes, if not more. And that's an hour and a half there and another hour and a half back. That was a long day for that lady. On Tuesday, Dolly Parton got her first vaccination and posted this to her social media.
Well, hey, it's me. I'm finally going to get my vaccine. I'm so excited. I've been waiting a while. I'm old enough to get it, and I'm smart enough to get it. So I'm very happy that I'm going to get my Moderna shot today. And I wanted to tell everybody, I think you should get out there and do it too. I even changed one of my songs to fit the occasion. It goes, vaccine, 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 vaccine. I'm begging of you, please don't hesitate. Vaccine, 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 vaccine. Because once you're dead, then that's a bit too late. I know I'm trying to be funny now, but I'm dead serious about the vaccine. I think we all want to get back to normal, whatever that is, and that would be a great shot in the arm, wouldn't it, if we could get back to that. But anyhow, I just wanted to encourage everybody, because the sooner we get to feeling better, the sooner we are going to get back to being normal. So I just want to say to all of you cowards out there, don't be such a chicken squat. Get out there and get shot. Anyway, that's my message to you. So I am going to call on my friend, Dr. Najia Boomrod, that's worked in research here at Vanderbilt. That's where I am today. And he's going to pop me in my arm. And so I'm going to call him in. I'm going to mask up first, though, because I have a pretty good distance from me and the camera. So I'm going to try to put this on and get that on, get my hair back around so I look good. You know, we got to look good. Okay, Dr. Najia, get in here and give me a shot. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
It's so
Have
good
you been
to see
practicing?
you, and thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, well, thank you for helping me out. You've been here for years doing research at Vanderbilt, and you and I have been friends forever, and I thought it was only appropriate that you should be the one to give me my shot today.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you're here and that you're giving a great message, and we're ready.
Okay, well, I'm going to wait on you.
Okay.
I hope you practice. I even had a little cutout in my shirt. I masked it over here because I'm sure you can just reach down in there and surely find a muscle somewhere.
So,
I'm going to wait for you. All right.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Do what you got to do. You're the doctor. I'm just the patient. I didn't know you was going to be so clumsy. I hope you're going to do better with my shot. And I hope this don't look like it does on TV where it looks like they're driving an ice pick in your arm. Okay.
Let me ask you, I have 2 questions to ask you. Do you
Okay.
have any bleeding disorders?
No.
Any serious allergies, anaphylactic reaction?
No.
Okay, we're ready.
I think I'm good to go. So. I'm going. Well, it didn't take this long to film 9 to 5, Dr. Najia. Okay. I've been waiting since December. I've been in line. Okay, here I go. All right. Think you got it?
I got it.
Okay. That didn't hurt. Just stung a little bit, but that was from the alcohol pad, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. All right.
Should we put
A Band-Aid? No, it'll mess up my beauty mark.
Okay.
I'm joking. You do what you gotta do. I don't want blood on my clothes. Hey, I did it.
That 4-minute clip in which Dolly Parton sings New Relics to Jolene, which is she changed before getting her Moderna vaccine. By the way, she donated $1 million to help create that vaccine. In a January study by the Kaiser Family Foundation Health think tank, 43% said they wanted to wait and see before receiving a vaccine, compared with only 26% of white Americans. Data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, show that while African Americans make up 13% of the U.S. population and account for 15% of COVID-19 deaths, they constituted only 6% of those who had been vaccinated as of mid-January. A recent Associated Press poll found 1 in 3 Americans don't plan to get the COVID-19 vaccination. And by the way, that's not only in the Black and brown communities. I know people that also are waiting. I have a niece who works in the healthcare industry, a brother, a friend from high school. All do not want to get the vaccine. I'm getting it. If I could get my appointment, I hope. It's up to you. I don't want to tell you either way what to do. It's your decision. It's your health. But I would strongly suggest it. And it's not just me. The head of the head guy, Anthony Fauci, said get whatever vaccine you can get in your arm. So, let's just follow the science, people. I'm not a doctor, and I don't claim to be. Meanwhile, there is an ad council campaign that is going to be launched, that is going to spend $52 million in a public service campaign targeting mostly Hispanic and African American populations. And again, we'll have more on this story next week. The National Ad Council PSA campaign will be in both English and Spanish, and plans are to roll it out in a few months. They'll be using television, billboards, that's ads, along the highways and streets, bus shelters, social media, and print publications will be used. A few of the ads, we're told, will feature celebrities and the federal government's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, which is all over the press, and recommends that you get it. The Ad Council efforts include materials that are specifically going to be targeting the church leaders and doctors and pharmacists and others in the African American and Hispanic communities. Now, besides that, the United States government is involved in the Ad Council's campaign, but it has its own $300 million U.S. Department of Health and Human Services campaign that they plan to launch. We haven't heard much on that yet. A recent poll found 1 in 3 Americans don't plan to get the COVID-19 vaccine. The coronavirus epidemic has killed 500,000 plus people in the U.S. alone. If you want more information, please go to getvaccineanswers.org. Just do your homework. I'm going to play next a clip from NBC News about what's happening on new guidelines for people that are fully vaccinated.
This is Tom Costello. Just over 2 months into the vaccine rollout, more at-risk Americans are getting vaccinated, with 55% of those 65 and older receiving at least one shot, though many minority communities are lagging. In Maryland, where African Americans represent 31% of the population, only 16% of those who've been vaccinated are Black.
The problem is not hesitancy at the moment. The problem is access.
Now, mobile vaccination units are seeking out the underserved.
Our hope is really to focus on the areas that have been hardest hit and to protect our most vulnerable residents.
All 3 vaccines offer critical protection against severe infection, hospitalization, and death. But the mayor of Detroit turned down 6,200 J&J doses, saying they had enough this week to vaccinate those with appointments.
Moderna and Pfizer are the best. And I am going to do everything I can to make sure the residents of the city of Detroit get the best.
But after talking to the White House, the mayor today said he will add the J&J vaccine to the COVID fight.
We've got to get away from this issue of comparing one with the other, except to say that we have a highly efficacious group of 3 vaccines.
Also tonight, the CDC says it is still working on new guidelines for people who are fully vaccinated. Some 28 million so far.
Now go straight across and make a left.
Traveling and restaurant dining should be okay, but experts urge mask wearing until more people are vaccinated.
It's a good show of solidarity that even if you're vaccinated, while the vast majority of us are not, when you go to the grocery store, to still be respectful, polite, and wear your mask.
Tom, tell us about this new research on a link between obesity and COVID.
Yeah, it suggests that people who are obese are up to 10 times more likely to die from COVID. So all the more reason, say researchers and...
That NBC report was from Baltimore, Maryland. Here's what a pastor in Atlanta told the Black News Network this week on their role in getting their community vaccinated.
2 weeks ago, and they promised us the early part of March, as this is the first day. We are now getting ready to knock down the door, waiting, raising up our flag and blowing the horn and sending smoke signals, saying, don't forget about us. As soon as we get it, we will be the largest distribution center for our county. And so we're zealously to anticipate its arrival.
And how will the process work for people in that area who do want to be vaccinated? How does the process work to get that vaccine at your church when it is available?
To my understanding, it is first going to be offered to those who are the most vulnerable, which are our seniors, and then our first line workers, responders, and civic servants. And I believe after that, it is a registration/lottery process.
And you talk about another pandemic that is impacting the Black community. What is that pandemic?
I would say that there are 2. One is health, is food disparity. We have the responsibility of giving groceries to 8,000 families a week. 8,000 families on Saturday line up around the spans of our campus to receive groceries. And this is what President Biden classified last week as the working poor. People who have a job 40 hours a week, but still are struggling just to survive. The second pandemic that I think is about to hit is the mental health crisis. It is an inordinate amount of people in my congregation, the larger community, who are suffering with depression, with anxiety, and fleeting thoughts of suicide. Whether it's about the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, or loss of their own identity in the face of all that is taking place. And so those 2, I think America's really going to have to brace us for, because there are no vaccines either.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us, Pastor Jamal Bryant of the New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Georgia. We appreciate your time. Up next, could another Trump run for office be on the horizon? We'll hear what the former president...
And of course, what we've all been waiting for, The Oprah interview tonight. We've had a drip feed of preview clips and a war of words this week after newspaper accusations that Meghan Markle bullied royal staff, denied and dismissed by her spokesperson at the latest personal attack, have only added fuel to the media fire. Buckingham Palace said Wednesday it would conduct an internal investigation into the bullying allegations. So this has been a big deal. Now, royal interviews are historically rare, and the family is always guarded in what they reveal to the public. But Harry and Meghan, a year after stepping down full-time from royal service, are sitting down with Oprah Winfrey, and it's time. And this time is, we'll see what's going to happen. Now, it used to be, before Princess Diana's big interview, when she was alive, that royals never complained and never explained. That was their motto. And, that's been the rule. They don't get to talk. And you're going to hear in a clip that I'm going to play for you that was released on Meghan actually saying, hey, I didn't get to speak for myself. Now I can.
I called you either February or March 2018 before the wedding, asking, would you please give me an interview? And you said, I'm sorry, it's not the right time. And finally, we get to sit down and have this conversation.
Well, I remember that conversation very well. I wasn't even allowed to have that conversation with you personally, right? There had to be people from the comments sitting there. Everything was...
There were other people in the room when I was having that conversation. You turned me down nicely and said, perhaps there will be another time when there's the right time. What is right about this time?
Well, so many things that we're on the other side of a lot of life experience that's happened, and also that we have the ability to make our own choices in a way that I couldn't have said yes to you then. That wasn't my choice to make. So as an adult who lived a really independent life, to then go into this construct that is different than I think what people imagine it to be, it's really liberating to be able to have the right and the privilege in some ways to be able to say yes. I'm
and to
I'm
say
ready
it
to
for
talk.
yourself.
To say it for
and
yourself.
not to have to consult with anybody at this point.
Yeah, to be able to just make a choice on your own and just be able to speak for yourself.
In a separate interview last week, Prince Harry told television host James Corden that Britain's, quote, toxic, unquote, media coverage was, quote, destroying my mental health, unquote. And that, in part, he said, drove them to leave and come to the United States. Of course, they went to Canada first, but now they're living in LA. Now, I don't know if everybody knows this, but they're actually neighbors with Oprah. Now, others have criticized the timing of the interview, as Harry's grandfather, Prince Philip, who's 99, is in the hospital. He's been there because of an infection. And, another criticism is that, the couple used the media to reveal that Meghan had a miscarriage and that they're expecting their second child. But then they turn around and now in this sit-down interview, they're going to scrutinize, what the tabloids had done to Meghan. Whether it's British or American, it doesn't matter. the media coverage of the royal family, they've always written what they wanted. Meghan actually had a court case where she actually won. And so, they're taking on a lot as a young couple, and they are not going to be silenced anymore. So this should be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Now, the couple's attempt to control the narrative, because they have an axe to grind with the British press, has awoken the giants this week with the release of accusations that Meghan abused of former staff members. The war of words against the tabloid press is likely to escalate today. The feud between the British press, Meghan and Prince Harry, reaches a fever pitch ahead of Oprah's interview. So, she could not get more, heightened awareness for this interview, and the British press are just feeding into that. And one more thing about Oprah. Now, everybody's just waiting for this interview, but Oprah's philanthropic side has decided to help people affected by the winter storm in Houston. And this week on Instagram, I saw a post that said that the OTEfoundation.org, which is Ordinary Towards Extraordinary Foundation, you can apply for help, and she's got her own foundation, and she's using her money to help people in Houston. And finally today, we are going to talk about Governor Cuomo. Here's a clip from NBC News.
Two more women are accusing New York Governor Andrew Cuomo of inappropriate behavior this morning. One woman, Anna Liss, tells the Wall Street Journal the governor touched her lower back and kissed her hand in 2013 while she was working as his policy advisor. A senior advisor to Cuomo tells the Journal, quote, reporters and photographers have covered the governor for 14 years, watching him kiss men and women and posing for pictures. Another woman, Karen Hinton, a former press aide to the governor, spoke to our NBC station WNBC in New York, describing a moment in the year 2000 when Cuomo was HUD secretary.
So I stood up to leave, and he walked across from his couch and embraced me intimately. It was not just a hug. It was an intimate embrace.
Two people have known Hinton for years confirmed she confided in them about the incident years ago. A spokesman for Governor Cuomo denied the allegation to WNBC and accused Hinton of, quote, attempting to take advantage of this moment to score cheap points with made-up allegations from 21 years ago. Last week, the governor spoke out about other allegations against him, apologizing for his actions and saying he unknowingly acted in a way that made women feel uncomfortable.
Well, you heard it. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is no longer the media's golden boy. Where he used to provide his daily updates during the COVID pandemic, he's facing 5 women accusing him of sexual harassment. Now, he's becoming the story instead of the bombshell mounting evidence that his administration covered up nursing home COVID deaths. Now, he's apologized to the first 3 women, and he's agreed to cooperate with the investigation into his conduct. And he says he's not stepping down. This has turned into a classic To Kill a Mockingbird storyline. Although we're reminded of the old adage, a person is innocent until proven guilty, there's a little hope that New York Governor Cuomo will receive a fair due process during his trial due to prejudice. Now, if I could interject my thoughts, when in a professional setting, you cannot be your normal self. We wear different hats. We have different faces, different masks, okay? You're one person at home, you're one person at work. There's certain behaviors that make other people uncomfortable. And this is where culture and business intersect. And it's a messy intersection. As someone who has a heritage of coming from a conservative background, some would say abusive towards women in Arab and Muslim culture, there's a reason why men and women are separated in those certain cultures. It's so things like misunderstandings don't happen, and to stop other things from happening both before and after marriage. It involves honor, the girls and the families. With regard to American culture, it may seem appropriate since we know Italians, like Arabs, are intimate when gathering with family. It's part of European and Middle Eastern culture and elsewhere to kiss when seeing or visiting someone. Yes, it's true. Men kiss other men on the cheek. Well, both cheeks, sometimes several times. Now, some might find that strange. It is, but that's how it's done. I have two concerns with the Cuomo incident back here in New York. First, the fact that his office adamantly denies wrongdoing. Then, the governor apologizes to his first three accusers, saying he didn't mean for anyone to feel uncomfortable. It sounds plausible, and you might even believe him as being sincere. However, the governor reverts back to his denial of wrongdoing in the two latest accusers who have come forward. And you heard the clip. He accuses them of taking advantage of the current situation. I beg to differ. This case exemplifies that despite an event happening 21 years ago, or any amount of time, key events will affect you for the rest of your life. And the fact that it happened continues to fester inside of that person. By coming out, it does not take away a woman's pain. The accuser has gone on with their life while you have suffered in a dark place, affecting probably every personal and professional relationship you've had. The fact that Governor Cuomo did not acknowledge the latest two accusers of misappropriately touching them, that adds further insult and pain to those women. It is not how I would advise the governor to proceed. He's heading down a slippery slope that isn't going to end well for him or his career. That's my 2 cents. We'll be watching this story as it unfolds. Remember, it took the women in the Me Too movement years to get the courage to speak out against Harvey Weinstein and others in Hollywood. Now, sex and politics seem to be an obsession with Democrats, I've been told. It's not a big issue for Republicans. Well, don't tell that to the women who are suffering. They don't really care about a person's political affiliation. When a person in public office abuses their power, there will be consequences, no matter how many years ago that an event happened. There is no statute of limitations to misbehavior, to crossing personal boundaries, nor to not being forthcoming in the public eye. One of the first things a politician is supposed to do is to break bad news before the press gets a hold of it. Because once they smell that impropriety, it's like a dog with a bone. They're not going to give it up until they break that bone. For the Heart and Home podcast, I'm Sabah Fakhoury. We'll check back with you after the Oprah interview and see what happens next. Have a wonderful day.